Hello, and welcome to another Captain Wolf Clay tutorial. Today, we'll be creating Hornet from the game Hollow Knight. I chose to create Hornet today because that way, Buggy Boy actually has a friend and can have someone to talk to and sometimes fight with. But I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I had a lot of fun creating Hornet today, and so I believe that she turned out pretty well and reflects how she is in the game. And I want to quickly say thank you so much for clicking on this tutorial and watching it, and I hope you enjoy and hopefully possibly follow along and create your own Hornet at home. Well, anyways, on to the video. Welcome to the Clay Desk. To start Hornet, we're going to create a puck. For those of you who don't know what a puck is what I like to call the base of a character. And so this can be whatever you choose it to be. I chose for it to be essentially the cobblestone that Hollow Knight walks on throughout the game. And so now, to create the cobblestone, you simply place a few down to start and then let the rest fall into place. Now that we have all the stones in the right place, we could then put it onto our plate to cook. And while that's cooking, we can start on Hornet. So now we'll create Hornet's body. We start off with a barrel of clay, and then we simply cut off the edges to get the right amount of clay that we want for the size of body that we actually want for Hornet. After we cut off the sides of the barrel of clay, we then start on her legs. For her legs, we just take a simple tube, nice thin tube because she doesn't have very thick legs. And so then we simply create a second one. Wow, where did that come from? Anyways, we then cut them so that they're the same exact length and we attach it to the body. But we don't really have to worry about blending it too much because the place where her legs attach to her body will mostly be hidden by her skirt later on when we create it. Because Hornet wears a skirt, you can't really see what her body looks like, and so we don't really have to worry about making a specific shape as long as it's there to create support for the rest of her body when we actually create that later on. Now that we're done with the body, we can start on her arms. Even though, yes, we don't see her body, she does have arms that you can sometimes see. And so, we'll try and go for the same thing where you can just barely see her arm, but we still, need to create both of them because she has two arms. Now that Hornet's body is complete, we can now focus on making sure it keeps its shape. And so since we don't want the left arm to be seen, we'll fold it up so that it can stay nice and hidden. I know what you're wondering. What is this wire piece? Well, what it is my genius solution to making sure that Hornet doesn't bend her legs too much. It's a stand that I can hold Hornet on without having to put any weight on her. Just real quick, let me show you this neat little trick I've been practicing. So this disc of clay is going to be Hornet's dress. And so the way that we actually get the folds to look natural, we make actual folds in the clay. It's like, it makes sense, but it also creates really nice looking folds simply because, they are literal folds. For the folds, I simply pinch it in certain areas to force the fold to happen, but we don't want the folds to be too large, otherwise it'll make Hornet look really small, and the folds will no longer actually look like real folds simply because they're very large folds, making Hornet look small because, large folds. But in the game, I really like her flowy dress and like how it moves whenever she moves, because that's what dresses do. But I just love how like some of the moves she makes makes it seem like as if it's like extra flowy, and it just looks really pretty when she moves around with the dress. And like I tried to capture that idea in the clay, which I used a little modeling tool to help fold the genuine folds so that it exaggerates more and to create more flowy dress to replicate what she has. Now, after we're done folding, we then try and make sure that Hornet's arm is still sticking out, because yes, her arm does still exist, and yes, it still does play a role in the model. Now we create a divot at the top of the dress so that we can then stick Hornet's head onto her body, and to make it look like a more natural transition rather than just, sticking on top of like a flat piece of clay. Like it'll actually stick into the dress. So I feel like a common question is the wondering of why create Hollow Knight characters. Like I only have made 3 videos and 2 of them are Hollow Knight. Like why would I do that? Well, I thought that I would like to start off with these characters simply because they're pretty recognizable, and then also just well-loved characters. And, it's just a game that I absolutely love playing, and I thought that it'd be really fun to actually create the characters. And it felt like a really good gateway to larger and more complicated and significantly more detailed models later on in my channel. And so after that, we now clean the desk simply because we will be using white clay, and we want to keep our white clay white. To make Hornet's unique head shape, I simply create a tube of clay. Yeah, it actually wasn't that complicated of an idea. So then I made it into a U, and then made the points come to more of a point where one side was flat and the other was a lot more curved, because that's how she appears in game, and the tube didn't really reflect that in the way that it was. So right now, as you can see, I'm just creating that point a lot more, trying to make sure that it looks a lot more like Hornet, and making sure that one side is flat, but without removing the curves of the head. One thing I'm wondering though is, for later videos, as I mentioned, I want to make more complicated models. Should I make the videos longer, or should I try and keep the videos the same length but cut out a lot more of the tutorial? I don't know. Let me know in the comments so that I know what I should do whenever I make. So next we're going to create Hornet's eyes. And so for this, I use the technique of just cutting a ball of clay in half so that both eyes would be the same exact shape. And so then I will roll them out a little and press them to make sure that they are the right size that I want, and that both of them are the same size. This technique helps me understand what piece needs more clay, or if they both need more clay, and which shape to actually make them that will create the final shape that I actually want for the eyes when I actually flatten them onto the model. And so this can be changed depending on the size of eyes that you want to make and the shape of the eye to make sure that they're both the same size and the exact size and shape that you want for the model that you're creating. And so for putting on the eyes, I simply somewhat flatten them first, and then I finish pressing them onto the model so that once I actually press them, they are the full size that I want, rather than having them be the full size before putting them actually onto the model. So that way I can press them on and they actually attach. And so after we make the eyes, we then put on Hornet's head, but make sure that her dress still creates a somewhat flat line so that it doesn't look unnatural. And then we also retouch the folds since we squished them a little by putting on Hornet's head and working on the neck itself. And so then we are able to put Hornet onto the stand and leave her to the side as we work on our next thing. So for our next piece, we have to, once again, clean because we are using white clay again. Now we are now making the needle. So we roll out this needle to the about approximate size that we want, and then we also check Hornet's size with it so that we get the proper size that we want, and then we make sure that we make the proper adjustments so that the Hornet will be the exact length that we actually want comparative to the Hornet that we just made. We make adjustments to the needle so that way it has a sharp point and also a place to have a handle, while also leaving some room to create the end of the needle as well. We then make the hole at the end of the needle that you can see in the game. And so we do this by using a little ball point at the end of our clay tool to try and create this hole without tearing the clay and without deforming the rest of the needle as well. And so we just simply clean it up so that it has a nice little hole that goes all the way around. It's not break. That is the most important part here. That the hole is a hole, not a tear. And then we simply check the proportions again with Hornet so that the needle is still correct. After we're done with the needle, we simply put it onto wax paper and grab Hornet as well, along with our baking plate. And so we make sure that everything is completely ready to go into the oven and everything is exactly how we want. Now it is time to go to the oven. Now we're done cooking Hornet. So we simply take her off the plate so that we can actually continue to work on her and do the finishing touches. Now we put some glue on her hand so that we can finally attach the needle to her hand that we can just barely see, which is exactly what we want. Now the puck is also done cooking. We can now finally attach Hornet to the puck so that she can actually stand up, because obviously she can't stand up on her own because, look at those legs. Those are absolutely tiny legs. So then we simply add some glue to the bottoms of her feet, put her onto the puck, hold her there for a little bit, and then Hornet from Hollow Knight is now finally done. we made it to the end and we have her completed, fully cooked on her puck. Thank you so much for watching my clay tutorial on Hornet. I really hope it was easy to follow along and that you hopefully created your own clay Hornet at home. It's okay if you didn't, but it would be cool if you did. Thank you so much, and please like, comment, and subscribe, and I hope I will see you in the next clay tutorial, and that you hopefully create many things in the future. Be nice and have fun. Ooh, look at you, staying here after the outro. Well, I'll pay it off by showing Buggy Boy get glued to the same puck so that he too can also stand up, because he also, cannot stand up like Hornet. So, see ya.